The Room of Spirit and Time, known in the English dub as the Hyperbolic Time Chamber, has provided a pivotal training experience for characters in the Dragon Ball world. In contrast, for characters mostly involving Vegeta, the Gravity Room has been the key way to train. But when you talk about all of the pros and cons of each, what do we need to know? Well, to answer your thoughts, alrighty guys, it is Qaaman here today, bringing you a breakdown of both training sequences, as Dragon Ball Super Episode 91 showed both Goku and Vegeta training in the same episode in two different ways. So let's get started. So the first thing that we need to talk about is the fluctuations in temperature, going from negative 40 degrees Fahrenheit and negative 40 degrees Celsius, and yes, both are at negative 40 degrees when it comes to the negative numbers, as that's how it would add up, to 122 degrees Fahrenheit and 50 degrees Celsius. The Hyperbolic Time Chamber can go from really cold to really hot, and by having those temperatures that most people would not be able to stand, that is one way to toughen up your body to take extreme rapid changes in temperature. Now, the next thing we should talk about is the fact that the gravity is 10 times that of Earth. Now, for Dragon Ball characters, 10 times the gravity of Earth is not that challenging. But one interesting thing I should point out is that the Hyperbolic Time Chamber seems to be very different between the living room and the training room in terms of how its effect is. Gohan had no problem walking into the Hyperbolic Time Chamber, but once he stepped onto the training room, he actually fell down. This is different in the manga, as Gohan was walking the same all throughout, which is pretty much implying that the gravity affects you the whole time, and the manga didn't show the same effect with the gravity. Another key point to add to the training regimen is the fact that the air gets denser the farther you are from the center of the chamber, so obviously if it's harder to breathe, it's also, along with temperature, putting a bigger strain on your body to fight in tougher conditions. So that's definitely one thing the time chamber has. It adds more conditions for your body to be well trained under. And the biggest key factor that makes the Hyperbolic Time Chamber the Hyperbolic Time Chamber is the fact that you can train more in a shorter period of time that would obviously be taking place in the real world, which makes this great for a boost in power. Now, if I were to talk about some improvements that have been made to the Hyperbolic Time Chamber, the whole 48-hour limit in going into the time chamber has been changed in Dragon Ball Super, as Goku and Vegeta were training for 3 days, making it 72 hours in the real world versus the 48 hours that you were originally supposed to be able to go in there with. And obviously there's been a slight change in one other rule where they said only 2 people can enter at once, as in the Buu Saga 4 people entered at once, but it was later kind of rethought about, as you can say that it was referring to the supplies instead of how many people can actually go in there. So those are the definite changes that have happened. Now, when you look at the gravity room, it's pretty simple. All you have to do is tune up the room, crank up the gravity, and train. And to talk about some of the cons of the gravity room versus the Hyperbolic Time Chamber, since it's a much smaller room, you have to watch out more for explosive attacks, as you can literally just wipe out the entire area as compared to the vast dimension of the Hyperbolic Time Chamber. And this was shown in the Android arc, as Vegeta literally destroyed the entire gravity room and was injured in the process. In addition to this, because you're training in real time versus the slower time dilations of the Hyperbolic Time Chamber, obviously in terms of short-term training, it would not be as beneficial, as it would be much slower paced. And the third con of the gravity room would be the fact that it really doesn't train your body to do anything else besides train at a higher gravity level, as the time chamber trains your body to train at tougher conditions with the temperature plus less air. But the benefits of the gravity room is the fact that there is a higher gravity level to train at versus the only 10 times of the Hyperbolic Time Chamber, as Vegeta has trained casually at 150 times and has gone as far as 500 times later on in the Dragon Ball series. So literally, 150 times Earth's gravity was a casual workout for Vegeta and Trunks. So, as for my verdict, as shown in the Cell games, there seems to be marginal increases to using the Hyperbolic Time Chamber after re-entering. You can argue that this was because the first time Vegeta and Trunks went in, they learned how to use the Super Saiyan Grade 2 and Grade 3 forms, and the second time they went in, they were simply just increasing their power. But the point I'm trying to get at here is the fact that the power increase on its own 2 feet without gaining a new Super Saiyan form was so minor that it shows you that there are marginal increases to the Hyperbolic Time Chamber. And the only other time that the Hyperbolic Time Chamber seemed to really push someone's power against a particular opponent would be when Vegeta was fighting against Goku Black. But even then, Goku didn't use the chamber, and Vegeta's power was clearly not that different from Goku's based on the fights that followed, so this shows a pattern. Also, Goku didn't reuse it like Vegeta, so this goes even more into debating the consistency of Super's power scaling versus the actual usage of the chamber itself. But the argument needed to be said. The chamber seems to follow the laws of diminishing returns, so with every time you train, it decreases the amount that you can actually gain out of it. So with that said, the Hyperbolic Time Chamber is better for short-term training, whereas the Gravity Room is much better for long-term training, especially if you were afforded the time. The best example to look at this is to see how strong Vegeta got in 7 years during the Buu arc using the Gravity Chamber due to the long-term benefits. And to make an additional point on this matter, before people even used the Hyperbolic Time Chamber in Dragon Ball Z, not counting when Goku used it as a kid, Vegeta, who was much weaker than a Super Saiyan Trunks and a Super Saiyan Goku, managed to close the gap during the Android arc by simply using the Gravity Chamber throughout those years. The Hyperbolic Time Chamber was great for learning a new form in a small amount of time, but when you look at the actual power gains, it's really not that significant. Let me know what you think in the comment section below, guys, as I'm really looking forward to hearing your feedback on this video, as I will be responding to a ton of your comments, questions, or anything else. So with everything else said, please remember to rate, comment, and subscribe. And remember, as I always say, to have a great day, guys, and let me know which training regimen you think is better.